The worst day of your life isn't when a villain punches you. It's when your dad says he loves you and then uses your face to clean a subway. That's Invincible's thesis statement written in skyline-sized letters. Mark Grayson grows up thinking his dad is basically Superman with a mustache, strongest man alive, world's greatest hero, loving husband, Saturday backyard barbecue level wholesome. And when Mark's powers finally show up late, after months of flipping burgers and throwing trash bags into the sky for practice, Nolan is proud. Or at least, he wears the face of a proud dad while quietly sharpening a completely different knife. At first, it's every teen superhero daydream come true. Mark's first flight is clumsy and hilarious. He rockets into the air like a bottle rocket, then forgets about gravity and eats a rooftop with his whole body. Debbie, his mom, keeps it real. Don't be an idiot. Wear the suit, clean your shoes, call me. Nolan takes him out to train, tossing him through clouds and teaching him to punch through concrete like it's drywall. And inside that warm montage, Mark's belief system settles in. The world is dangerous, but Dad is the safety net. Meanwhile, Dad is spending his evenings deleting the Avengers discount cousins. The Guardians of the Globe get summoned, the lights go low, and Omni Man methodically turns every teammate into a cautionary tale about trust. It's not even a fight so much as a performance review, where everyone gets fired through the floor. The audience knows what Mark doesn't. The family photo on the mantle has a fuse in it. Mark picks his hero name, Invincible, which is adorable when your medical bills are about to become geopolitical. He meets the team. He flirts with Adam Eve. He stops a bank robbery by creating property damage worth 12 banks. Then the Flaxons invade from another dimension 3 separate times, which is just rude. And when they finally retreat, Omni-Man follows them home and, discourages future tourism by turning their city into a note that reads, "Don't." Mark sees a dad who gets results. He doesn't see the part where results mean scorched earth first, questions never. Debbie, though. Debbie notices everything. The suit comes back with blood that's not red. Nolan's stories get thinner. She calls Art the tailor, sips tea with that, "I know you're lying, but keep going" face moms develop in year 2 of raising a teenager. And in their kitchen, the tension sits between the salt and pepper like a new condiment. Betrayanaise. Cecil's Global Defense Agency starts sniffing around too. He's the guy who talks like your exhausted school principal, but runs black ops under the baseball stadium. He doesn't tell Mark or Debbie what he suspects. He just parks invisible guys in the living room and waits for Nolan to slip. And every time Mark flies off to save a bus, there's a satellite photo of Dad flying off to erase evidence. Nolan's lessons get sharper. He tells Mark being a hero means hard choices, and then defines hard as you didn't want to see this, but now you're complicit. He rushes him, hurls him into a mountain as a warm-up, and insists humanity's problems are just temporary noise. Mark thinks Dad's pushing him to be strong. Dad's actually pushing him out of the kiddie pool and into the ocean with a brick. The reveal arrives the way earthquakes do, violently and without caring if you made plans today. The Immortal gets revived and sprints straight at Omni-Man for a rematch. Nolan rips him in half like a phone book to send a message. Mark drops into the blood fog like Dad, and Omni-Man says it straight. He's a Viltrumite. His people conquer worlds. Earth is scheduled, and humans, this is where it burns, are short-lived, sentimental obstacles. He loves Debbie, sure, but like a pet. That line doesn't just crack Mark's heart, it salts the cracks. Then comes the field trip from hell. Nolan drags Mark through Chicago to demonstrate what mercy looks like to an empire. And it's not pretty. A building collapses while Mark's straining to hold it. Civilians die while he's begging them to hang on. And a train becomes a physics lecture you never wanted. It's relentless, like Dad's trying to sandblast empathy off his son. Here's the core. When your role model betrays you, it's not just trust that dies. It's the map you've used for every choice, every value, every bedtime story where good wins because good has Dad's voice. You can punch a monster. You cannot throw hands with a worldview. If you've ever had a hero fail you, and you're trying to build a new compass without smashing the old one to pieces, stick around. And if that hits home, hit subscribe so this messy rebuild feels a little less lonely. Nolan prepares to finish the lesson by finishing his son. And then mercy from the most ordinary place. He flashes to a memory of baseball with little Mark, his tiny hands too small for the mitt. Debbie cheering, the sun boring and perfect. He stops. The strongest being on Earth leaves Earth because a fragile, inconvenient feeling gets in the way of conquest. And that's the crack in the empire. The cleanup is clinical. Mark wakes up in a hospital bed that looks like it could bill him into bankruptcy, even with government insurance. Debbie cries in a kitchen that suddenly feels 2 sizes too big. Cecil tells Mark the truth with a bureaucrat's apology. He knew, he gambled, and he needs Mark, but only when Mark chooses. And in a quiet, ugly moment, Mark realizes there's no authority you can outsource your soul to. You can team up, you can accept help, but the belief you live by, that has to be yours. Rebuilding doesn't start with a grand speech. It starts with small, unglamorous choices. Mark goes back to school, even though his face still remembers every wall. He tries to see Amber, and it's awkward because my dad's a supervillain is not a normal relationship hurdle. He talks to Eve, who's already pieced out of teen drama to do actual humanitarian work. And she gives him something critical, a model of heroism that isn't about applause or bloodlines, just showing up where you're needed. Debbie starts her remodel too. She boxes up mementos that now feel like weapons and reaches out to people who can sit with the pain instead of solving it. Art brings coffee like a friend, not just a tailor, and the house begins to feel less like a crime scene and more like a place where 2 humans are allowed to grieve. It's not triumphant. It's adult, and it's the opposite of Viltrumite connection over conquest, choice over programming. Mark's first steps as a rebuilt hero are wobbly. He tries working with Cecil on his terms, eyes open, boundaries sharper. He flies slower sometimes, making sure the person in front of him doesn't turn into a body behind him. He stops chasing Dad's shadow and starts asking a better question. Who do I become when no one is telling me what that should look like? Because that's the secret Omni Man accidentally hands his son by breaking him. When the person you worship shows you they were never worthy of worship, you get a painful kind of freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want. The freedom to pick your values on purpose, to test them against the worst day of your life, and keep them anyway. And that's the first nail in Mark's new foundation. So the morning after that kind of freedom, it's not sunrise and birdsong. It's a hospital bed and a spine full of glass, eyes opening to white lights, and a mom who's trying to smile like she didn't just watch her life get erased. Mark wakes up to a world where his dad is a headline with the words traitor and massacre attached, and the first voice he hears besides his mom's is Cecil. Because of course, the government doesn't wait for full sentences before they hand you a stack of consequences. Cecil does his father knows best routine, except his version has security clearances and a price tag you never see. He doesn't sugarcoat. There's no we'll see, just a straight up we need you. He talks about damage control like it's oxygen, about keeping the public from losing its mind, about stitching the lie together just enough that life keeps moving. It's not heroic. It's triage with a tie. And Mark gets it, because being invincible now means you don't get to tap out when your soul's tired. Meanwhile, Debbie's at home playing the worst game of archaeology. Every drawer is a trap. Every book has a memory inside it with sharp edges. She does the angry clean, the sad laundry, the stare at his empty chair like it's going to apologize. She tries the wine thing. It doesn't help. She tries the silence thing. It's louder. What finally works is the most boring fix of all. She shows up to a support group full of people who've had buildings dropped on them and hearts torn out, and she says out loud the thing she hates most. I didn't know the man I loved. It's not closure. It's a first shovel of dirt on the idea that love means certainty. Eve does something smarter than either of them. She skips the performance review for the concept of normal and builds her own job description. She quits school without the pity tour, walks out into the trees, and literally makes a life with geometry and willpower. Bridges, shelters, clean water. While everyone else argues about heroes, she becomes a contractor for hope. Mark visits, limping but stubborn. and she hands him something truer than pep. You don't have to keep bleeding for symbols when you could be building something people actually touch. It sounds easy until Cecil calls. Then it's mission after mission, the kind you can't post about, the kind you don't even get to feel good about. You put out 10 small fires so the city doesn't notice the forest is ash. One day, it's a rogue tech bro stitching cadavers into science projects for fun and grant money. He's already hired by the agency by the time Mark's stitches come out. Another day, it's redirecting meteors because the planet forgot to duck. It's messy and constant and weirdly domestic. You start to realize the Cape life is at least 70% errands, 20% apology tours, and the rest is screaming. The Guardians have their own family therapy, except they do it with knives. Robot steps up as the world's creepiest guidance counselor, and then rips the bandage off his whole "I'm a glass jar nerd piloting drones" reality. He steals DNA, prints himself a teenage body, and declares he did it for love, which is not how one normally beeps and boops their way to romance. Trust nosedives through the floor. But then something honest happens. They don't run. They grind. They train until the floor's slick and the quips run out. They stare Robot in the face and say, "If you want to be one of us, earn it the hard way, like everyone else." When the Lizard League rolls up with more guns than imagination, the Guardians learn the part that never makes it on posters. Sometimes you do everything right, and people still die. The room goes hot, someone doesn't get back up, and the world shrinks to a hallway and a heartbeat you can't restart. Black Samson doesn't give them speeches after. He makes them re-rack their weights and remember why they stay. It's not about being enough. It's about being there again tomorrow. If you've ever had to relearn how to trust after someone nuked your idea of safe, stick around with me. Hit like, not for the algorithm, but because this kind of story hurts less when we pull it apart together, instead of pretending it didn't mess us up. Alan the alien drops back into Mark's orbit just in time to widen the map and shrink the comfort. He's funny until he isn't. The coalition he serves isn't a bunch of idealists in a treehouse. It's triage on a galactic scale. And the Viltrumites aren't bedtime monsters. They're organized, they're everywhere, and they're coming. Alan looks at Mark like a weird lottery ticket. Half human, half apocalypse. Potentially the one error in the code that could jam the machine. It's flattering in the same way a doctor saying, "You're rare" is flattering. You don't feel special. You feel watched. Mark tries to be normal anyway. College books, half smiles with Amber, late night talks with Eve where she says the thing he hates hearing. You can't punch grief into being useful. He takes a job flipping burgers because Greece has rules and rules are soothing. He carries the world like a tray that keeps almost tipping. And then Angstrom Levy shows up to snatch it out of his hands and smash the dishes on purpose. Levy sells himself as the cure for human stupidity. A multiverse librarian who wants to gather every fix from every timeline and hand them out like free samples. It's a nice idea until you realize he's outsourcing his ethics to 1,000 strangers. He straps a machine to his head, hires the worst blue twins in existence to run it, and invites Mark to stand there like a witness while he rewrites himself into a god. The process cooks his brain into spaghetti. The empathy leaks out with it. And because he needs a villain more than he needs the truth, he writes Mark's name on the blame. What follows is a field trip through the version of Mark that keeps him up at night. Worlds where he becomes what his dad wanted. Skies choked with ships wearing his crest. Tiny rebellions crushed under the practical math of empire. Levy drags him through apocalypse after apocalypse. And I told you so tour with blood in the aisles. And here's the ugly win. It works on Mark, but not the way Levy wants. It scares him straight. He stops asking if he could become that and starts staking his life on the decision not to. The fight that ends it is stupid and brutal, and exactly what recovery looks like in real time. Mark doesn't outthink Levy. There's no elegant, clean move. He chooses the person in the room who can still be saved. His mom, his friends, the family inside 4 thin walls. And he does the worst thing he's ever done to keep them alive. It's not heroic, it's necessary. And it's going to sit inside him like a rock for a long time. After, the cleanup isn't cops and tape. It's Mark in a quiet kitchen, hands shaking over a sink, trying to remember how to breathe without feeling like a copy of his father. It's talking to Eve in a tone that's more apology than plan. It's showing up for people in tiny, boring ways that no one hashtags. Fixing a roof, carrying groceries. asking Amber what she needs and listening even when the answer is space. You think rebuilding belief looks like a speech. It actually looks like chores done with integrity. Debbie finds a groove too, halfway between rage and compassion. She stops trying to erase Nolan from her history and starts boxing him correctly. The man I loved who did terrible things, so he can't jump out and scare her in the middle of the day. She takes the money and status that came with his name and spends it like a bandage on other people's open wounds. It doesn't fix them. That's not how this works. But it proves something to herself. Love wasn't a scam just because he lied. Her heart wasn't wrong. Her hope wasn't stupid. It just needs better boundaries now. Cecil keeps calling. The Guardians keep bleeding and getting back up. Alan keeps warning. And Mark, for all his slip-ups, keeps making the same impossible humble decision. To be the guy who never got an instruction manual and still shows up anyway. That's a belief system you can't steal or sell or burn. That's a foundation you pour yourself, one awful day at a time. So the universe hears Mark say, "I'm gonna pour my own foundation," and immediately throws him a pop quiz from hell. He tries to go back to school, do assignments, grab a burger with Amber, without scanning the sky every 5 seconds. He takes patrols that are low stakes on purpose, muggers, cats stuck on a ledge, the kind of saves where you don't accidentally create a crater. And he's jumpy, like a guy who learned to drive in a demolition derby. Every scream sounds like Chicago all over again. But he still shows up, and that's the quiet part that matters. Next, the multiverse knocks. There's this brilliant soft-spoken guy, Angstrom, who thinks, hey, maybe if I copy-paste the best solutions from 1,000 realities, we can skip to the good ending. He's got the Mahler twins in lab coats, which is already the world's worst peer review process. And Mark drops in trying to be responsible. He doesn't want to break anything. He just wants to keep another science project from becoming a mass grave. It still goes sideways, because 20 copies of anything plus panic equals explosion. Mark drags people out of fire. He does exactly what a hero's supposed to do. Protect first, ask metaphysics later. When the smoke clears, Angstrom's miracle machine is scrap, his head is scrambled, and the one face he can focus on, the face he blames, is Mark's. That's the awful, boring math of hero work no one prints on the poster. You can save a room and still end up as somebody's origin story. And now there's this new ghost walking behind Mark, whispering that his best day still isn't enough. Meanwhile, the Guardians are trying to become a real team instead of Cecil's emergency Band-Aid box. Immortal plays stoic dad and frustrated HR rep at the same time, giving pep talks that sound like exit interviews. Robots wearing a human face, which is wild because empathy is a skill you actually have to learn, not a skin you just unlock. They win messy, lose messy, argue in broom closets, and then take their bruised egos right back to the next call. That's how belief systems look in real time. Not a statue in a museum, but a chair with 3 legs you keep sitting on anyway, while you fix the 4th. Adam Eve tries a different rebuild. She steps off the punch guy, save bus treadmill, and goes straight at the problems that don't explode. Food deserts, crumbling bridges, a playground that fails kids every day and never makes the news. And the system greets her like she vandalized normal with improvements. Permits, fines, neighbors who like suffering, but only if it looks familiar. She learns the hard way that power without consent is just a prettier bulldozer. So she re-aims. Help where help gets invited. Alan shows up like the galaxy's most exhausted messenger pigeon. He's got the coalition intel, the Viltrum file folder, with so many red stamps it might as well be bleeding. He believes in Mark the way people believe in seatbelts. Not because they're cool, but because suddenly one day you're upside down and grateful. And then he learns what every I've got time to explain guy learns. You don't. 3 Viltrumites hit him like a recall notice, and he's suddenly a warning wrapped in bandages. But he still crawls back to the mic. Even when belief is a bruise, it's still a signal. And just when Mark is starting to carry all of that like a weird balance school in one hand, space politics in the other, his phone rings from another solar system. Nolan's voice. Calm, measured, like he didn't turn a train into a blender and call it an anecdote. He says he's somewhere safe. He's building something different. And he needs Mark.